Samson Mow is predicting the Bitcoin price to surpass $1 million per coin after the ETF approval and the money starts entering the crypto space. I'm also going to break down his math as well as his predictions on what countries will likely adopt Bitcoin next as legal tender over the course of the next 5 years. So massive shout out to the one and only Samson Mow. Let's start here. He tweeted, "It has come to my attention that there are some Bitcoiners that don't think Bitcoin can reach $1 million per coin in a matter of days or weeks after the ETF money starts to flow in. They're in for a pleasant surprise." And you can see the sentiment on that. People are lit. Shout out British Hodl Nut, and the rest of y'all. He also shares here, we will see a seismic shift to Bitcoin and sound money. The next 5 years will be incredible. Here's his predictions on which countries are likely to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender next. Guatemala in 2023. Let's go. Argentina in 2023. Send it. We have the Bitcoin halving next year, which we all know set to occur in roughly 5 months. El Salvador 2024. Panama, well, we know El Salvador already has Bitcoin as the legal tender. Panama, 2024. Mexico, that's one of my predictions. One of the next countries adopt Bitcoin as the legal tender. Canada, could you imagine that? By 2025, he says it could be this year, potentially next year. Peru, let's freaking go, 2026. And Nicaragua by 2026. Shout out Nicaragua. I used to live in Costa Rica, and we used to make our visa runs in Nicaragua as I lived in the north of Costa Rica. And of course, we have Panama in the south of Costa Rica, all neighbors of El Salvador as well. Latin America, let's freaking go. Now, which countries do you agree are likely to adopt Bitcoin as the legal tender in the years to come? Please let me know in that live chat. He also shares here a reminder, the ETF approvals will unlock a tidal wave of capital influx into Bitcoin. Pair that with the multiplier effect, and you get $1 million BTC. And he initially shared another tweet December 3rd of 2021. That was the year we hit the all-time high. And he said, approval of a spot ETF will send Bitcoin to $1 million per coin. And again, he predicted this 2 years ago. Over a few days. A few days. That means right after. Gary and the SEC don't want to be the ones responsible for sending Bitcoin to the moon. And this was off the back of Congressman Tom Emmer's tweet here. Gary Gensler, I'm still waiting on your response to our November 3rd letter asking you to make sense of why Bitcoin future ETFs are allowed to trade, but not Bitcoin spot ETFs. And he makes a great point. So Mr. Gensler, what are you doing? Why are you suppressing the growth of the entire industry by not allowing spot ETFs, but you allow futures like it ain't no thing? And Preston Pish responded, because Goldman, Gary, and you got to remember, Gary Gensler comes from Goldman Sachs. You got to remember, Gary was already worth hundreds of millions of dollars from Goldman Sachs before he became the chairman of the SEC. Gary needs to let his boys manipulate those cash-settled derivatives as long as he can. Preach. Shout out to Preston Pish. And let's go back to some more Samson Mow tweets. What effect does a $250 billion inflow into Bitcoin have over a period of days or weeks, given the incredibly inelastic supply of Bitcoin and the limited quantities available on the exchanges? I'd say numbers go up. And you can see here, let's do the math. Total assets under management of spot Bitcoin ETF applicants, $25 trillion. You times that by a 1% allocation, which is 0.01. You can run the math in your calculator. Times that by 118, which is the multiplier factor. Divide that by 21 million Bitcoin, which is the total supply. And we get a $1.4 million Bitcoin price. Let me know if you agree or disagree with some of this math, and massive shout out to Samson Mow. He also shares here, in 2017, it took 9 months for Bitcoin to go from 1,000 to 20,000. That's right. In 2017, I was there. I witnessed it firsthand. How many of you the same? The block subsidy was 12.5. There was a lot more Bitcoin sloshing around on the exchanges. Mining was boiling the oceans, and there was zero institutional money coming in. 1,000 to 20,000 is 20x. 50,000 to 1 million is 20x. So is it really that far-fetched that we hit $1 million Bitcoin price, considering we've already seen a $69,000 all-time high? I think Samson Mow does a great job breaking down this math. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. And we also have the Church of Bitcoin Consciousness. Shout out to Bitcoin is Hope. He says, I predict by this time next year, Bitcoin will hit no less than $1 million per coin and possibly as high as 7 million. Now we're talking. hits from the hopium bong, let's freaking go. Because all the ish money and banker racketeers have created has to disappear somewhere, and Bitcoin just happens to be the perfect toilet for that. Preach. Very well said. Let me know if you agree or disagree with these analysts, and let me dive deeper into Bitcoin hitting $1 million post ETF approval, shall we? We all know the Bitcoin price. The next logical target is going to be 42,000 in my opinion. Once we break this 38K resistance, there's not a lot in between there as far as resistance is concerned. And we also have Bitcoin Jack explaining the week's Binance and ETF news had failed to reshape market dynamics. Quoting him here, expected any rumor on a Binance versus US resolution to be more bullish than the price reflects. On top of the generally bullish headlines last week, minus Kraken though, much of it is more of the same earlier crackdown language recycled, introducing potential downside targets. So we know the upside target is going to be 42,000. The downside can be 30. But we have some analysts like on-chain analyst Willy Woo, who is very skeptical that we ever return to a sub $30,000 Bitcoin price action ever again. Let me know your thoughts. Here's what this other analyst says. Sometimes that what doesn't happen is the tell. High time frame supporters below our clean buy level. If it comes, potential top here or another leg to 42,000 with support between 29 and 31. But now let's discuss this $1 million target because it's a lot more exciting, isn't it? In its most recent social media survey, Phil, co-founder of Trading Suite, decent trader, shout out to Phil and Philip Swift, asked followers whether Bitcoin could hit 40,000 or 31st. The result was a near 50-50 split. What are your thoughts, fam? I think Bitcoin is more likely to reach clearly 40,000 than 30 as we're pumping. There's so much bullishness in the market. And even with the largest exchange in the world admitting, money laundering, their CEO, and stepping down, it hasn't barely affected the Bitcoin price action. We climb right back within 24 hours. And then, of course, we have the one and only Samson Mow, the CEO of Bitcoin adoption firm Jan3, who's making big moves in the industry, suggesting Bitcoin can not only hit $1 million per coin, but it could be a result of the approval that the hodlers were mistaking and predicting any less. As he shared here, it has come to my attention. There are some Bitcoiners, do you know any, that don't think Bitcoin could reach $1 million in a matter of days or weeks after the ETF money starts to flow in. They're in for a pleasant surprise. So there you have it, my crypto fam. Let me know if you agree or disagree that these mofos who are bearish or perma bears are going to be in for a hell of a surprise.